Hello and welcome to News Now. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Well, just 2 weeks to President Muhammadu Buhari's inauguration for a second term in office, a motion seeking to stop the process has been filed before the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. The motion, dated May 9th and filed by the Hope Democratic Party, was initially scheduled for hearing on Tuesday but has been adjourned to May 22nd. In the application, the party held that President Buhari should not be sworn in while his election was still being challenged at the tribunal. The matter was adjourned after the respondents informed the five-man tribunal that they were only served with the application shortly before the commencement of the proceeding and asked for time to respond. 4 petitions challenging President Buhari's victory had earlier been filed before the tribunal by the major opposition People's Democratic Party, Hope Democratic Party, and 2 others. Well, moving on, President Buhari is set to inaugurate a committee for the implementation of the 30,000 Naira national minimum wage. Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, said this while briefing journalists in Abuja. Ngige stressed that there are still processes and procedures that the new wage needs to undergo before its implementation. He further revealed that the implementation committee, which will be chaired by Head of Service of the Federation, Winifred Oyoita, will also comprise of 7 ministers. The minister, however, did not state when the government would start payment, but noted that arrears would be paid anytime when the implementation is made. And in the event of security threats in the northeast and other forms of humanitarian emergencies across Nigeria, the Ministry of Health has organized a national discourse tagged Nigeria Health Humanitarian Response Dialogue. The dialogue is a pre-event to the main summit proposed to be held later in the year. Aisha Adebayo tells us more.
The decade-long insurgency in northern Nigeria has left thousands of people killed and millions displaced, creating one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world. At the epicenter of this crisis is Borno, a northeastern state with the highest population of displaced persons. Due to their overwhelming number, these people are exposed to various forms of diseases and health challenges. This dire situation is what necessitated this gathering of stakeholders in the health sector. Their motive is to come up with systems that will speed up humanitarian response in the troubled state.
The humanitarian crisis in the 6 states of the northeastern part of Nigeria has intensified after 8 years of violent conflict. In 2016, this was compounded as government forces took back territory previously held by Boko Haram. The conflict caused widespread forced displacement, acute food and nutrition shortage, insecurity, and serious human rights violations. Large areas of Borno State, the most affected state, remain inaccessible to humanitarian assistance. The security situation remains highly volatile, thereby causing mass displacement of people to the neighboring Lake Chad Basin countries.
Nigeria's Health Minister Isaac Adewale has now called for the creation of a humanitarian peace gathering to address the issue.
This dialogue, therefore, has been conceived for us to arrive at a consensus for the best modalities towards developing a systematic approach, as well as to provide deliberate next steps for the contextualization of the humanitarian development nexus into the Nigerian humanitarian response architecture. This maiden national health humanitarian forum can only get bigger and attract more stakeholders and global interest, and it can serve as a platform to discuss and honor exemplary individuals in the sector. That is why I suggest that as part of strengthening our intervention and consolidating on these sacrifices made, I wish to call for the establishment of a humanitarian peace garden to serve as a designated area for humanitarians in the health sector, as well as a place for us to commemorate and honor our colleagues who have paid the ultimate sacrifice in this sector.
I'm sure we all know that we have about 2.5 million children that are acutely malnourished. And to feed them needs special kind of intervention, which is not readily available in Nigeria. That is the RUTF. And I know there are so many Nigerians that we want to support, that is in the private sector, that we want to contribute towards reviving these children. But it's one thing to have the money to support, but it's one thing to have the product available. I realize that we don't have the product available despite the fact that many of our people we want to support. You can see the number of Indomie noodles that they buy whenever they want to do any support to children. But we need these products to be readily available. And I believe we need the minister to kind of do a waiver for people that are interested to import these products so that people can buy them and we don't rely on just UNICEF and of course only government to revive these our children.
According to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner, UNHCR, about 2.4 million people have been displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency in the Lake Chad Basin. The agency has now earmarked over $847 million to meet critical needs in the geopolitical zone, top of which is health and feeding. Abisola Adebayo, TV360 Nigeria.
The United States has suspended interview waivers for renewals, otherwise known as Dropbox process in Nigeria, indefinitely. The U.S. mission to Nigeria disclosed this in a statement released on Tuesday. It explained that the suspension would take effect immediately at the close of business on Tuesday, stressing that it would no longer accept visa applications by DHL in Nigeria. The mission, however, gave assurance that those who have already submitted their passports for processing via Dropbox at the U.S. Embassy in Abuja and the Consulate General in Lagos would not be affected by the development. The new procedure, according to the mission, is that non-immigrant visa applicants in Nigeria must apply online and appear in person at the U.S. Embassy in Abuja or U.S. Consulate General in Lagos to submit their application for review. And Nigeria's electoral body, INEX, says it will consider rescheduling the upcoming governorship election in Bayelsa State. This follows a request from the Bayelsa State government urging the body to shift the election from November 2nd, 2019. Deputy Governor of the state, Gborigboha Jonah, made a plea when he led delegation to the state government on a courtesy visit to INEC head office in Abuja on Tuesday. Jonah says the election date clashes with the state's annual Thanksgiving, which cannot be rescheduled. In response, INEC Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu said the commission would meet and deliberate on the demand. Well, after 449 days, lone Dapchi schoolgirl Leah Sharibu is still in Boko Haram captivity. The young girl, who turned 16 today, was abducted alongside over 100 other students from the government secondary school in Dapchi, Yobe State on February 19, 2018. While the other girls have regained their freedom, Leah was held back for refusing to renounce her fate. On the event of her birthday, a group of concerned Nigerians have staged a march at the Unity Fountain in Abuja to demand her swift release.
We know what it is when you have your daughter in captivity and in the hands of terrorists, Boko Haram. We know what they do to people. As a mother, you don't want to imagine that. So Aisha Buhari, our First Lady, I plead with you on behalf of Leah Sharibu's mother, as a mother too, that please plead with your husband, the president. Like the other girls were set free and they are in Dapchi and the mother is seeing them. Please bring back Leah so that her mother will also see her. She would have wished today to hug her daughter and tell her happy birthday, but she cannot. So I am crying because I know the pain and I know what the mother is going through.
We are grateful to God for the much the church has been able to do in terms of prayer. We are open and optimistic that the federal government will step up the efforts to rescue Leah Sharibu. We want to appreciate them for all they have done. But until Leah is released, then we are still begging and pleading that they should do everything needful to set the girl free. She is an apostle of Christianity in Nigeria and in the world, and we are waiting eagerly to see her released. We feel very bad, having not heard from her for a very long time. We feel very bad, but we have faith in the Lord that Leah is healthy. We have faith in the Lord that she's alive and she's keeping her faith. And so we are only praying that the rescue mission will only be accelerated so that she can be released as fast as possible.
Still on security matter, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has assured travelers of safety on the Abuja-Kaduna Highway. El-Rufai gave the assurance after a closed-door meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja. He says his administration has implemented various security measures to restore safety on the expressway.
So what statistics that were used to determine that the Kaduna-Abuja road is the most dangerous road anywhere? I like facts. I like using figures. I wish the people that said that would use figures. But I'm saying that no matter what anyone said last week, I am assuring Nigerians that the Abuja-Kaduna road is quite safe now and will be so long as the initiatives put in place by the various security agencies, details of which I am not willing to disclose, continue to be in place.
Electricity serves numerous purposes in every modern society, from powering household appliances, industrial machine and equipment, to improving means of communication. While the Nigerian government is working on providing sufficient power to residents, citizens are however struggling to afford this basic amenity. This next report takes a look at some challenges in the power sector.
Some people that are being overbilled, especially those that are on the estimated billing system.
This is one complaint familiar to many Nigerians, especially those without prepaid meters. According to the most recent power sector report from the National Bureau of Statistics, over 4.4 million out of the more than 7.9 million registered active electricity customers in Nigeria are subjected to the estimated billing system. A system many say is void of transparency, accountability, and most of all not cost-effective, and has discouraged many from paying their bills. Okpayemi is here to make his monthly electricity payment, but he's obviously not happy.
I can't say what has changed from what is on presently as regards power. If you're talking about crazy bill, well, Nigeria, we have that. But how do we get to resolve these issues among the general public? People are using lights, fine. But are they being charged according to what they consume? That's no.
Nigeria currently produces about 5,000 to 7,000 megawatts of electricity, even though it has the capacity to generate double that amount. This production gap has made the country one of the least electrified nations in the world. While Okpayemi worries about the quantity of power available to his home, this new resident of Abeson Estate, Ikpaja, has more on his plate.
As a new occupant, I got into the house and then I realized that there was actually an accumulated bill of 300,000. I said, let me take it upon myself to be able to get light in my house. I came to Ikeja distribution unit, and what they told me was I should go back to my landlord to clear the bill. Also interestingly, I realized that from January that the light had been cut off. The distribution center there at Gowon Estate, they kept bringing guest bills to that house. Up to when I entered, I have seen 2 bills, and I realized and I know that there had not been light in that house.
Reports like this have moved the Nigerian Senate to pass the Electric Power Sector Reform Act. The act seeks to prohibit the estimated billing system and fast-track the provision of prepaid meters to every electricity customer across the country. But as Nigerians await its complete passage and implementation, I sought to find out what makes estimated bills so high.
We have regulatory body that has spelled out how we should bill our customers. That is what we are using. So every time we give our reports to them to check, the body says that if somebody has a meter very close to that area, we should find the average of what that person consumes and increase it by 30% to bill people that don't have meter.
Over 57% of registered electricity customers do not have access to prepaid meters. To close this gap, The Nigerian government has introduced the Meter Asset Provider Scheme (MAP) to speed up the supply and installation of prepaid meters to every household.
There is an initiative they call MAPS, Meter Acquisition Provider, Meter Acquisition Provider, that is, consultants have been given license now to bring in the meter. So once it meets the standard of INEX and discos, they will direct customers to buy from them.
The MAP initiative officially kicked off on May 1st, 2019 and will phase out in the next 3 years. Under the scheme, consumers will pay between 36,000 naira and 67,000 naira for the supply, installation and maintenance of single-phase and three-phase meters. Fidelia Aguncha, TV360, Nigeria. Well, News Now will continue in just a moment. Stay with us.
House the crash most recently crashed to the lives of concerted the problem non simplified. Voters are on the queue to cast their ballot.
That election was built and Nigerians are reacting.
Area of Lagos has ended some minutes say the incident has been managed.
This morning.
Welcome back. It's time for news and business, and Aneta Felix is standing by with details. Hello, Aneta.
Hello, Fidelia.
Tell me what's making headlines over there.
Well, the Nigerian Senate on Tuesday began the screening of the renewal of Godwin Emefiele's appointment as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. At plenary on Tuesday, Senate leader Ahmed Lawan moved the motion under executive communication after it was seconded by Senator Philip Aduda. The Senate President referred the executive request to the Senate Committee on Banking and Finance for further legislative action. The committee is to report to the Senate within a week. President Muhammadu Buhari had on May 8th written to the Senate on his reappointment of Emefiele as CBN governor for a second term of 5 years as his current tenure expires on the 2nd of June.
The first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Godwin Emefiele for renewal of appointment as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria in accordance with the Section A, subsections 1 and 2 of the CBN Act 2007. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President CNC to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President CNC be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Yes, this is referred to Committee on Banking to report back within a week. Leader of the Senate.
The Standard Organization of Nigeria, SON, on Tuesday staged a protest at the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The workers carried various placards and assembled at the entrance of the SON headquarters, lamenting alleged cases of corruption, poor staff welfare, and non-payment of entitlement. They were later addressed by SON spokesperson Dipo Fashional, who assured that issues raised by the body will be addressed.
We cannot be lured. We are not hungry people. We know our rights. We want a total implementation of conditions of service. Because that is what the law states.
Yes.
That's what the Constitution acknowledges.
Yes.
We have sister organizations like Corporate Affairs Commission of Nigeria, Corporate Affairs Commission, Federal Inland Revenue Service. They are all sister to Standard Organization of Nigeria here, but their conditions of service are not comparable to what is obtainable here.
I think today my heart is bleeding because of the infringement of rights of some workers. because what is happening in Son is a clear manifestation of slavery. You cannot imagine a situation where an organization is generating about 12 billion naira annually, and the staff are going with the paltry amount of 2 billion, not even up to 2 billion in a year. The rest is shared between the management staff. Management staff of Son are clear embodiment of corruption. They are an epitome of corruption.
At the moment, since 2017, 20% of staff emolument is paid as conditions of service. 6% of it represents hazard and risk allowance. Another 6% represents extra duty allowance. And the other 8% is productivity allowance. All of these allowances are not part of the salaries of the staff, because salaries and emoluments of staff are paid by the federal government through the IPPIS. So there are rules, there are financial guidelines guiding the operations of organizations like ours. And it is within those rules that we are operating.
The Nigerian government has been urged to explore and harness potentials in the non-oil sector to improve the economy and attract foreign investors. President of the National Institute of Marketing in Nigeria, Tony Agenemonen, gave this advice at the 2019 Annual Marketing Conference in Port Harcourt. He stressed that oil is fast going out of fashion and that it will be wise to grow other sectors in order to build a strong economic base for the future.
It's very obvious that the oil economy is going in Nigeria, whether we want to accept it or not. And the earlier we recognize it and move on, the better for all of us. And if we are talking about non-oil sector, I mean, we look at areas like agriculture and also area like the creative industry, like we talk about Nollywood. If you go to many of these African countries, I mean, I didn't know how significant Nollywood actually is until my tenure as presidential spokesman, because that was the time I traveled Africa and I saw in many of these countries, I mean, Nollywood is actually huge. But these are huge potentials that we can sell, I mean, to broaden the base of our economy.
Be serious about wanting us to promote fashion. And what do I mean by that? They must put mechanisms in place that will support the manufacturing of these products, and also make policies in place that will assist, will help the entrepreneur. Because right now, getting a loan is difficult, sourcing funds is difficult, and even when the funds are available, money is expensive. So if we must export these products, we must make policies that will be friendly to every manufacturer of fashion.
What we have done this year is to go into another intervention talking about the non-oil export. And as you can see, the ideas are coming out both from the guest speaker and all the discussants and from all the questions that have happened. Again, we're going to come out with actionable conclusions, which we again will present to the government. And we'll continue to drive it in terms of collaboration to ensure that this does not end up like any of the talk shop that you have the document and put on the shelf. So we intend to drive it aggressively.
Up next is a review of the stock market after this. The performance of the Nigerian equity markets remained bearish, with the all-share index trending downward to close at an index level of 0.22% or 28,422.76 basis points and a market cap of 10.678 trillion naira. The consumer goods and industrial goods sector closed in the reds, while the banking, oil and gas and insurance sector closed in the greens. Now, we've seen the activities of profit takers on the first 2 days of the market this week drag the market down, and these are the biggest losers. We see that Nestle Nigeria PLC recorded its first loss today in the past 7 trading sessions, ending with a decline of -3.48%. Seplat, WAPCO and First Bank of Nigeria Holdings follows next. And then activities of bargain hunters have pushed up the prices of this equity of Mobile Guarantee Trust Bank, Zenith Bank and UACN to 5.45%, 1.94%, 1.52%, and UACN there making an increase of 4.29%. The market summary here today shows that over 200 million shares were sold, worth over 2 billion naira in a total of 3,600 deals. Turning now to the foreign scene, we see that the FTSE and the Dow Jones remain positive, both closing in the greens, but Japan's Nikkei, I can't say the same for it, declining by 0.59%. That's it from here, Fidelia.
Well, thank you, Aneta, for that update. It seems the NSC is still in the downtrend for the past 7 days. Really sad for it. Well, let's now move on to the foreign scene. At least 5 Sudanese protesters and a member of the security forces have died in clashes in the capital, Khartoum. They were killed in gunfire at a sit-in outside military headquarters where demonstrators were demanding full civilian government. Dozens were also injured in the clash. Protesters said soldiers are responsible, but the army blamed it on unidentified elements. Sudan has been ruled by a transitional military council since last month's toppling of President Omar al-Bashir. And to sport, UEFA has chosen Slovenia's Damir Skomina as a referee for the All-English Champions League final between Tottenham and Liverpool in Madrid on June 1st. Skomina was in charge when United beat Ajax in the 2017 Europa League final, as well as the UEFA Super Cup match between Chelsea and Atletico Madrid 5 years earlier. He was fourth official at the 2013 Champions League final between Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich and has been referee in 4 of the competition's matches this season, including Liverpool's 1-0 win over Napoli, which secured a place in the knockout stage. The Champions League final takes place in Estadio Metropolitano in Madrid on Saturday, June 1st at 8 p.m. local time. Well, that is our news now. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Bye for now.